Okay, hello everyone. So I am so excited for this edition of the roundtable. So on behalf of Whitaker Counseling and Consulting, this is going to be a roundtable discussing peace in singlehood. So the mission of the business is always to educate, normalize, and empower. And I feel that this conversation is very necessary culturally, of course, in society, but culturally, when you are single over 30, it presents as if there is a deficit or a lack or almost a deficiency that you have. And that is not true. There are some beautiful things that can come while experiencing singleness. And so I have some participants on the call who will help lead this discussion. I do want them to introduce themselves. So I will start with Jessica. Please state your name, your age, and what is your occupation?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica, and I am 31, and I'm an educator.
Okay, and Jason, could you lead us off next?
Yes, my name is Jason Moffitt. I am 32, and I currently live in Oakland, California, where I teach high school visual arts.
Last but certainly not least.
Not least. My name is Jarvis Owens, and I'm an accountant, 37 years old.
Okay, so thank you guys for sharing that information, the start of our vulnerability. And so I really wanted you all to share your age just so we can kind of get a range of the demographic that is speaking, and then also the profession, just to show that you guys are not mental health professionals. So you guys are everyday people. Again, I am wanting to have conversations with the everyday person because I am an everyday person who has the background knowledge of mental health. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and yeah, let's get this started. One thing that I do want to pose for the listeners is Black marriages are decreasing. Like, there's data. So there is data. That's not what this show or that's not what this talk is about, but there is data. And there's a book called The Love Jones Cohort by Dr. Chris Marsh. It's really good, very straight to the point, very analytical. She's a sociologist and demographer, but it's presenting data, and it shows that Black marriages are decreasing and that there is an increase in what's called the Love Jones cohort. So that's being Black, middle class, never married, no children, live alone. And so while everyone on the call doesn't necessarily fit that, it was just speaking to times are changing where everyone is not striving for marriage anymore, or marriage is kind of being prolonged for whatever reason. And I'm so grateful and gracious that you guys have chosen to share your experience. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first round is, and which will be led by Jessica, what is peace to you, and how are you fostering or nurturing peace while single?
Well, peace for me is not worrying about what I can't control and worrying about what I can. So when I it literally took me sitting with myself to understand, like, I can't control other people, but I can control me, because I feel like being single, trying to date and, find a significant other, that is bringing someone else in the picture that I can't control. However, I can, work on myself, control my emotions. And that brings me peace, knowing that, and not carrying and I wouldn't call it, I would say not carrying someone else's, uh, you know, in like someone else, not carrying someone else, but just being in control of me. So that's peace for me. And while being single, I kind of touched on it already. I've been just kind of mastering the peace that I have in my life. So learning myself, learning what I love, learning what I hate. So just taking that time to sit with myself has brought me peace. And like I said, not worrying about everything else around me that I can't control.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. It's something that stood out when you shared that was the self-awareness. Like, yes, you're sitting
Mhm.
with yourself, but you said getting to know myself, the positive and the negative. That's really important, especially before you invite someone in and
Yes.
you don't even know what to communicate because you don't know yourself. I thank you so much for sharing that. Jason, What is peace to you, and how are you nurturing or fostering peace while single?
Yeah, so peace for me is just achieving or having balance in my life spiritually, mentally, and physically. And when most of the things in my life are moving in a positive direction, you know, for the most part, I would say that brings me peace. And for me, how I'm fostering it now is really just doing the things that I love and that genuinely bring me joy. And so one of them is running. And, it was the half marathon that I ran this morning. And so for me, that is the physical aspect, but also the mental aspect of it too, because running is a mental sport. And so it gives me just kind of clarity and just puts me in a space where I can go into and kind of tap into, goals that I have and, just really give me a place to really think and reflect while also getting, the spiritual aspect as well, the connection that I feel with the higher power. And yeah, so, those are just kind of how peace, is really, just all in one, encompasses all of those things for me. And so, yeah, how I'm nurturing it is just, like I said, doing things that I love, you know, saying yes to different opportunities, that come up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And shout out to you for putting a plug that mental wellness encompasses a balance between the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Absolutely. That is holistic wellness. And a shout out to you for finishing that half marathon, baby, because you know what? You know
Yes.
what? Everybody ain't thankful. So we're thankful for that. And I really appreciate you mentioning balance because sometimes when we're inviting people in, we become off balance and we don't know why. Like, what is going on? Like I was cool, right? And then we project that onto the other person. But
Right.
it sounds like you're developing this awareness of this is how I balance it. This is what feels good. This is the goal. So anyone who comes in, you can communicate that to them. Okay, Jarvis, what is peace to you and how are you nurturing or fostering peace while single?
I would say to kind of piggyback off of one of the points that Jessica made would be self-awareness. So just really being self-aware of myself
Mm-hmm.
and others as well. So kind of learning, myself, my patterns, how I may project myself to other people, what they see. And another part of self-awareness would be accountability. That really brings me peace, whether that be to myself or other people holding themselves accountable. It brings a calm, because your mind can just kind of wander. So how I nurture that is really just holding myself accountable. Just realizing another thing Jessica pointed out, things that are not in my control, things that are in my control. So when it is in my control, what do I do with that? How do I apologize to people? How do I show up for people? How do I show love? And also, yeah, just how would like others to show up, I guess you want to say, just kind of voicing that, whether it be, yeah, my pain, but yeah, just those things.
Let me tell you. Tell you. I saw Mill over there like, yes, yes, yes. Accountability and self-awareness. I tell people all the time, there is a power, not a freedom. There's a power when you can check your own self before somebody else check you. Do you
Yeah,
hear me? Like
yeah,
there is power in that. Uh yeah, thank you for putting that in the space. I think both what Miller and Jessica, sorry, with Jessica and Jason shared was along the lines of that self awareness, and you added that extra piece of accountability
yeah,
because that is something so serious, especially when you're inviting someone else in to where you're not waiting for that person to hold you accountable. No, I have this, right? So now, since it overflows for me, I can support you
yeah.
accountability looks like for you or for our partnership. Thank you guys. Okay. I'm just saying, y'all looking a little attractive knowing balance and awareness and accountability. But we ain't here to make matches. But I'm just saying, y'all looking attractive in these streets. Okay, so we're gonna go on to round two, which will be started off by Jarvis. And so the question is, what lesson or lessons are you currently learning while single?
Okay, so another stream of self-awareness is the lessons that I'm learning is to unlearn and then learn. So unlearning patterns, maybe unlearning dynamics we've been taught of a relationship. So unlearning that and just learning how, what may work for me, what may work for somebody else, I guess you want to say, just what works, trying to experiment and what works for my life. And just, because I think a lot of the times of what we were told of how a relationship looks like is not absolute. So it's a lot of just kind of exploring. So like I said, unlearning and learning constantly.
Okay, and that's a hell of a lesson, okay? Especially in your 30s, man. 20s was different. 30s is spent unlearning and healing and trying to figure it out so you don't end up doing the same thing in 30s as you did in 20s. I was angry when I turned 30 because I was like, where's the rule book? Like, somebody else knew this was like this and then nobody say nothing. But I think the unlearning part is powerful. I always speak about being first generation healing and things that were normed before us that we're kind of looking at like, this is uncomfortable, or like, I ain't feeling that, or we're judged because we want to try something different. So thank you for sharing that and putting that in the space. So now I'm going to go to Jessica. So, Jessica, what lessons are you learning currently while you're single?
A lesson that I'm learning is love. Like what love is spiritually, in all honesty, just learning how to love God and love myself better. That lesson, because I feel like culturally being single, sometimes it could be misconstrued like, you're just out here just careless. You don't love yourself. So when you're able to turn that blinder off and spiritually connect with God and then connect with yourself and just love on yourself, that love overflows and it overflows to those around you, whether it be family, friends, or a potential lover. That love will flow because they're able to see like how you treat yourself and how you love on yourself. So I'm learning love and what that is.
So beautiful. I will not tangent, but I could, and I want to, but I will not tangent. But that is, she's like, yes. No, like that's yours, and I want to keep that, right? And I appreciate you bringing that. So we also have like unlearning to welcome opportunities, and then you brought the love aspect in. Because again, and I say all the time, all anyone can ever get is the overflow of what you give in yourself.
Yep.
There's enough in my cup, then now I have enough for you. But if you lack something in your cup, you can't give that to somebody else. And love encompasses all. So thank you for that. So now we're going to go to Moffitt. So we got the unlearning, we got the love. Moffitt, what lessons are you currently learning while single?
Patience. I would say a lot of patience. Patience with myself, patience with others. Another thing is grace. And as an educator, you have to have these two things when working with kids. And just working with them. So I'm teaching high school next year, but the school that I'm leaving is elementary. And so you just get a range, from 4-year-olds to 10-year-olds, and the interactions that you have with them and just how genuine they can be. And then you can have these same interactions with, people who are older in their 60s and 70s, and you're receiving this same type of love from them. It just comes from a place of first understanding, and then once you have the understanding, you have the connection, and then once you have the connection, you have the trust. And so for me, it's just really learning to have patience in relationships that are not romantic, that are just learning how to love unconditionally and how to do this with a variety of, different people from all different backgrounds of life. So really for me, just having this season in which I can do that, and I can really pour into the relationships that I need to pour into, it helps me to just be the person that God created me to be filled with love and to know how to give it and receive it and how to just be genuine. And so once, you realize that and you have these interactions, you're able to then transfer that to a romantic partner.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for that. The first thing that stood out, of course, was patience. There's this song and it has a bar in there, and that's something that's been sitting with me and I share with other people where it says patience and waiting are not the same thing. And
Ooh.
I think I got some amens in the house, but patience and waiting are not the same thing. And then for you to bring up the aspect of being an educator, and I can empathize because I too am an educator. And it take a whole lot of patience, okay? Like we not waiting. We woo, but you also tied that into other dynamics. And you mentioned the relationships that you have. Like the goal is not romance. The goal is the relationship, period. And you're nurturing that. So when someone does come, again, that's an overflow. I've already been nurturing all these relationships. Now with you, I know how to have the relationship. We can work on the romantic part. So I'm just saying, y'all sound a little healed on this call, but I'm not trying to sell y'all, put y'all out there like that. But I'm just saying, somebody gonna be blessed, okay? Did anybody else want to comment before we move on to round 3?
I just want to say what Jason said. I agree completely with patience. Actually, one of the things that I learned when I first started my podcast was patience and just learning how important it is. So I think that's a very key element with growing relationships and connections with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I wanted to piggyback off of patience as well because I feel like previously dating, I was waiting. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit around. I'm gonna wait. And then I'm not gonna wait no more. Then it's like, okay, bye, gotta move forward. But like you said, patience is different. And you have to be willing to be patient to someone. And that patience has to come from you in order to sit in it when dating. So I feel like I love that you brought that up, Jason, and I love that you brought up the patience versus waiting, Bianca, because I feel like being singles don't understand that. And it's more of a game between the two. Like I'm gonna be patient when I want to, and then I'm gonna wait when I want to too.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that comment.
Yeah. Something that also resonated just came to me because when Moffitt shared Jason, guys, I know some of these individuals as their last names because we're educators, so I apologize. So when Jason shared patience and then he connected it to relationships and he connected it to being an educator and his faith, something that resonated is that patience requires faithfulness. Patience requires hope because you're being patient and you're still operating as normal, as opposed to waiting says, no, I'm going to pause. And there is no moving forward because I am waiting for something to change, as opposed to having faith or hope that I'm on the right path. So when he's talking about a romantic partner, he's still nurturing relationships. So I can be patient for the romance part because I'm getting filled in other ways. So that's something that really resonated. Okay, unlearning love and patience and nurturing relationships. Okay, so we are going to go to round 3, and that is going to be led by Jason, who just dropped that patience bomb on us. Got us going, got the momentum going. And this round asks, have your views of partnership changed? If so, in what ways?
Yes, it has to a certain extent. So when I think about the word partner and the STEM word part, which is a portion of the whole, ideally I would want someone who is adding value with their portion and not taking away from what I have and causing me headache and stress and different things. Like, because the world is hard as it is, and people make mistakes, but ultimately I want someone who is adding that value and not subtracting and draining. So really going back to patience, it's a lot of things in life are just timing. When you're on the right track and doing things that you love, you'll haphazardly meet someone at a coffee shop or at a bookstore. And so just tying it back to the partner aspect, um, I would say that yes, I had an idea of what a partner is and what a partner should be, but now it's just making me dive deeper into what does this really mean? What is a partner really supposed to do, and how they're supposed to show up in my life, and vice versa. Just really being open to opportunities. So I'll share a quick story. Last month, and I have a friend of mine who had a graduation party, and his wife has a friend that she went to high school with that was at the same graduation party. So, long story short, we just end up sitting together at, some random table. And of course, naturally, if someone's next to you, you're going to at least, compliment them on their dress or whatever the case may be. And so we're naturally talking and, exchange, contacts after. And, a few weeks later, I fly back home, to California. But in the interim time, we went out a couple times. And another thing is the courting phase, but that's another story. So anyway, came back home and still continuing the conversation. And wherever this may go, only God knows. But just really being open to the connection and just conversation with people, because you never know where it may go. And in this globalized world, just because this person lives on the East Coast and I live on the West Coast, people make it work from two ends of continents. So just really knowing what you want out of life, where you want to be in the next 2 to 3 years, and if there's someone who you feel a genuine connection with, regardless of what coast they may be on, you can still say, okay, this is where I want to live 2 years from now. So let's, just try X, Y, or Z, or whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to add that in. So yeah, I'm done.
Thank you for sharing that. It almost sounds like you're kind of speaking it into existence. That's the vibe I got. Or just being open with, you can make connections. Like you said, you're being patient. It's not like, oh my goodness, I exchanged contacts. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. Oh, this could be right. Like you're just like, no, I'm still going to pour into me. I'm about to do my recipe. I'm about to run this half marathon. What comes from it? So
it's really, it's the friendship first, and then once you have the friendship, then comes everything else. So really just going back to the aspect of knowing just how to connect to people, how to build relationships, and if it turns into something more than just friends, then whoop de doo.
But it also speaks to you practicing what you preach, because you already said you're just nurturing relationships. You didn't leave that encounter saying this could be my next whatever. You had already here working on the relationships in your life. So the overflow of just, hey, cool, I'll keep in touch with you. We can court or whatever. It's easy because you've done the work for that. So I feel like you wanted to highlight that you practice what you preach, which we appreciate. You may be speaking something into existence, because I saw some head nods in some places. So I'm going to save my comment, but I'm going to go ahead and go to Jessica. Have your views of partnership changed? If so, in what ways?
I don't think my views of partnership have changed. I think I've always known what my take was on partnership, and that's faithfulness. That's a team player, that's a helpmate, and like Jason said, that's someone that is going to add value and not take away. So for me, with a partner, you have to be willing to do the work. So if it's someone that is not like stagnant or feel like, once we get into this, this is it. It's a forever work. Like it's work. It takes work and it's something that never ends. So partnership is just finding that person that wants to go through that process with you and continue to do the work of growing and elevating and doing it together. As far as from a woman's perspective, being that helpmate. So I had to take time to look at myself and, see like, am I in a position to be helpful? Like, am I, like I said, working on myself to make sure that I'm adding value and that I'm not taking away. So just doing the work within so that the partnership can work.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, holding my feedback. I'm going to go to Jarvis. Have your views of partnership changed? If so, in what ways?
Yeah, I think they have changed. I would say, as a kid, I kind of had a certain view of partnership, which would be my parents. I saw them in a marriage growing up. I saw roles and certain expectations, I guess you can say.
Mhm.
And so I want to say that has changed a lot. Um, I believe that every marriage has a different set of rules or roles. You could say everybody's different as individuals. And with expectations, yeah, I think that's changed a lot too. I think it takes a lot of communication. So just when it comes to partnership, it's just diving in and really just saying what it is that you desire, what it is that you want, and not necessarily just coming in with this is how it's supposed to be without kind of saying it. It's like it's always been this way, so it should be this way, tradition in a sense. So just one thing I realized is just someone who is just kind of committed and kind of going along with the ride of like there's going to be a lot of work, just like how Jessica said, it's a lot of work. And just going through the journey that we are just together, we're just kind of tied at the hip, and it's I move when you move, and when you move I move, vice versa. Yeah, just being like real team, constant communication, don't assume, constant repair too. uh, so a lot of things have changed. I gained a lot of experience.
I really appreciate you all sharing your perspectives. Especially, I was so interested to hear that after hearing about the lessons that you've learned. So, a lot of times, especially when we're saying, like Jarvis led with, oh, I'm learning to unlearn, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, the views are going to change. Or Miller's like, yeah, I'm learning love. Yes, your perspective will be different of like, okay, what value do I add? And then Moffitt left us with the patience, baby. He took it there, and then piggybacking off, him breaking down what partner is. And patience is in that as well. I heard what wasn't explicitly said, but what I heard was that you are aware of the value that you hold. You are aware of what you hold that you're walking into. Not necessarily like I have this mold and you need to fit it, but like no, I've done enough work to say, hey, I'm preparing for it to be this. I'm prepared for it to be work. I'm preparing for it like it's not going to look like my parents did. It's going to look different or be what we want it to be. So the final round is what affirmation or advice do you have for someone currently experiencing singleness? And so I wanted to lead this one off, which of course I did not insert my personal experience into this dialogue because I wanted to create space for you guys. But I have a shared experience of experiencing singleness right now. And so things that you're saying, like, that's why I'm like, oh, that resonates. And like, oh, yeah. So if I'm taking, I know that others will too. And I, again, want to thank you. Before getting into that round, I do want to thank you for your vulnerability and showing a different lens to being single in your 30s. Because we know, well, it's no mystery. We're all Black on this call. So we know culturally, walking into spaces or going to hangouts or cookouts of people's, when you gonna, what happened to, you get what I'm saying? And no one is checking in like, how are you? How is this season for you? What are, like we're not the same people. And we have to also remember that everybody doesn't receive that. Everybody doesn't like newness. Everybody doesn't like change. And we're doing that and we're figuring it out. So I thank you guys. So for the advice slash affirmation that I want to share a quote and I will explain it. But the quote says, I came across it a few weeks ago and it just stood out to me and I didn't know in what capacity. I feel like it can be applicable to different experiences in life, but definitely in singlehood. So the quote says, the day a blind man sees, the first thing he throws away is the stick that has helped him all his life. So I'm going to read that again. The day a blind man sees, the first thing he throws away is the stick that has helped him all his life. And so for me, I am hoping that this can be an affirmation or turn into advice for those who are experiencing singleness, and that you are the prize. You hold the worth. You have the value. And just because someone else comes into your life for you to share yourself doesn't mean you completely throw away everything that you stood for, everything you worked for, everything you unlearned, everything prior to this person entering your life. And it is so easy to lose yourself and your identity in relationship. I didn't say partnership, in relationship. And I'm also very particular when I hear people talk about certain things like, oh, I'm in a relationship or I had that relationship. But were you in partnership? In partnership, your stick is still necessary. Even though you have learned to see, this stick still had value. So all this work you're doing, learning how to love, learning, unlearning, patience, nurturing all these different relationships, may you never lose that just because someone else has come into your life that you're planning to share yourself with. And that is my hope. And Jason hit the nail on the head for me when he said balance. I'm balancing this part of my life, this part of my life, this part of my life. So now when someone comes in, you know what it feels like to not feel balanced. You know what it feels like when now you're here and now I'm not spending time doing this like I used to. Partnership doesn't always require sacrifice. And that could be a whole nother segment, but yeah, so that's my advice or my affirmation is that do not forget all that you are just because someone else may enter your life. So, and we can just, whoever else feels moved or led to share next.
Yeah, I'll go. I would say a big piece of advice is to just use your time wisely and to really be intentional in how you use your time. So for me right now is, on the West Coast it's about to be 2 o'clock. All right. Say I go to bed at 10, I still have a good almost 7.5 hours of just me time. Like I don't have a dog to look after. I don't have any kind of dependence. It is just me. It is just me. So what I do for the rest of the day, I can use to add value to myself. I can, listen to a podcast while I'm cooking, trying out a new recipe. So now that is two things that I've done in this short amount of time that has added value to my life, that has brought me joy, and then for the next 5 hours, I can do this and do that. So really just knowing that, time is one of our biggest assets in life. And, what we choose to do with it can really be beneficial in the long run when, that time is shortened. When you have someone who, would like to spend this Friday with you for date night, when you, have someone that you're now cooking for and, all these many different things. So just really just, enjoying that time that you have and that space to yourself. Because once it's just not your time anymore. Once someone else is in the picture, you're considering them, and you're no longer selfish. You're selfless.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I connect your mention of patience with what you just said. Right? You're not waiting. You're not stuck. And let me sit here and worry and think and try to go somewhere and find this person. You're like, no, I'm about to invest in me. I'm about to use my time, invest in my time, invest in me. And you're patient in building yourself up, knowing that, your desires are still there and will come into fruition.
Just that, you can have it all in a sense. And I know we're talking about balance, which is kind of hard as well. So sometimes you feel like you don't have control over it, but I think you can have it all. You can have a beautiful relationship with someone, beautiful connection, friendship, and still keep everybody around you as well to have those beautiful relationships with people as well. I know you kind of mentioned that earlier about first thing you do is throw away the stick. And
Mhm.
it's like, no, you can have the stick as well. It's beautiful to have it too. It's beautiful to see and still have a stick.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just to always have hope, and to just never stop striving for, the beautiful things in life. Just be grateful for it because it doesn't come to everybody. So you just have to honor it, treat it with respect, give it love, give it patience, um, and all the other ingredients like work. So those are some affirmations I would say, and some advice too.
Jessica, we are ending it with you, honey. What
Oh, Lord.
affirmation or advice do you have for someone currently experiencing singleness?
My advice would be to love your singleness, love that time to yourself. I remember once upon a time, Bianca told me, you're going to get to a part in your life where you're going to be alone, and you need that time to be alone. So enjoy your singleness, be happy in your singleness. Like Jason said, do the things that you might not be able to do when someone else is, when you're sharing that partnership. So enjoy it, love it. Don't look at it as a negative connotation. It's beautiful. Singleness should be beautiful. So make it beautiful.
Mhm. Did anybody else have any last sentiments before we close out? No.
I think this was a really good discussion.
Yeah.
It's really good to have multiple people with multiple answers because it's hard to kind of give one answer. So
Mhm.
all these different lenses that we have and experiences that we have is it's very interesting, very beautiful. And I love these lessons that we all talk about.
Thank you for sharing that. And I, as the host or facilitator, I saw healing in three different ways, speaking to you guys. And like now that's communicated to people out there who thought it looked one way or they're comparing
Yeah.
themselves to someone else. Like, well, he runs marathons and does recipes. I don't. That doesn't mean that you're not healing or your journey ain't doing what it needs to do. So
Yeah.
I definitely saw healing in three different ways. And I was very intentional on I wanted more men than women on the call. And I wasn't a participant. And I think that's really important because we know, just even statistics wise, there are more women that exist than men. So, and then we get into culture to where, you know what I mean? The waters get murky, okay? Very murky. But I want people to see that Black men are also single and not necessarily waiting or hunting for what's next and actually investing in themselves. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
important to me. We hear that a lot from women already, and I feel there's a lot of platforms for women to kind of talk about that. And when a lot of more women share that experience because there's a lot more women than men. So just naturally, that's how it's going to fall. But I was really intentional of wanting Black men to have a platform and to be seen of like, oh, he out there working on himself. It ain't
Yeah.
that he can't get nobody. It's not that. It's he's actually taking the time to work on himself. Um, so I thank you guys. I am so joyed that you all have done this experience. And I am hoping that it edifies someone. And you have definitely helped me push the mission of this business forward with educating, normalizing, and empowering. And I feel like we got all that, all three of those components
Yeah.
on this call. So I thank you and I look forward to working with you again in the very near future. And if there's anything that I can do or any way that I can be of support or an actual human resource, definitely reach out. I am supportive of all things healing, all things unlearning for the betterment, right? Not unlearning
Yeah.
just because you're angry, but unlearning for betterment. So any way that I, as a friend and a mental health professional, can support in that, I want to. So I thank you guys. And yeah, this was Peace.
Mhm.
In terms of dating, I feel as if it differs regionally. Dating in the South looks different than, dating maybe in New York or, in California.
Look at
And
y'all.
I'm
Okay, well,
curious. Like, what's the difference? I mean, I don't want. We don't have to get too deep.
yeah.
What's the difference from? Because y'all clearly are from the South. So what's the?
Wait,
I
where are
feel
you
like
from?
what's the difference with Southern women and those who are not?
Just
well,
mannerisms.
I think so. I can speak on this. Just even if I'm wearing a collar shirt and a tie, some khakis, it's like, oh, you fancy today. I'm like, this is. I don't have on a 3-piece suit. Or if I open a door, like this is just like the women here aren't used to Southern norms and the
Yeah.
Southern culture. And so, if I do, the simplest thing, it can be like, oh, it can give mixed signals or blurred lines.
Mm,
So that's another thing I have to be cognizant about too. It's like, I'm dating different types of women, who haven't been, taught the same cultural values and things as someone from Georgia. Mm.
okay. That just has my mind like going. We have to go deeper, but I get what you guys are saying. They have different backgrounds. Uh yeah,
Different
that's so
mannerisms.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
yeah. But even me being from the South, I didn't see men open doors. I didn't see men compliment. So, but I know that that's a norm, right? It's
Yeah.
just culturally in where I grew up and what I was around, that wasn't norm. Yeah, I appreciate you guys saying that. It has my mind thinking, especially somebody who's been to several countries, but I've never dated out in those countries. Like I've always been like
Gotcha.
I'm single, living my best life. So yeah, very interesting. Did anything
Yeah.
resonate with you, Jessica?
Not necessarily. Well, yes, because I can resonate to that fact because when I travel from coast to coast, my family is in Florida, and when I go to Florida, there is a difference. They can see I'm from the South clearly just by my accent, just the way I carry myself. They know, oh, you're not from here. Like where are you? That's the first question you get. Like where are you from? So, but I never looked at it like Bianca said. I never really looked at it in a dating aspect. I'm just like, this is me. But I never knew the disconnect that it can bring and how that plays a major role in dating when you're dating across different coast to coast, whether it be content to content. You have to be self-aware that you're different and the other person may be different as well. So being able to, make that connection and go off of that while dating is awesome. So another self-awareness to have in this dating realm.
Yeah, something else came up that I would like to add to this pool of knowledge. And it's on the topic of healing because you may be from the South, you may be used to one thing, but when you start healing, you guys know this, and you start doing the work for yourself, your norm may be different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important as well. Of course, you're going to get to know people, but I had a situation where someone was helping me, a coworker, and they're like, "Hey, can you guys take this stuff?" Y'all know me. I live alone. I'm single. I'm used to, I loaded up. It was a case of water, a bucket, and something else. And I'm like, and he like, "No, ma'am. Like, put that on. Like, I'll walk this to your car." And I'm like, "Oh, I apologize. I wasn't trying to dismiss you. I'm not used to having help in this way." Right. So
Yeah.
even as uncomfortable as the moment was, I saw that it presented a certain way, but I'm also in a space right now of like, I'm not waiting for someone to do something. Like, I can carry a case of water. I do it every week. You know what I mean? Like, that's nothing.
Mhm.
So I also think that's something important for us to remember, even for the men as well, of in your season of singleness, your norms may be different because you're unlearning. And it may be certain things that's like, okay, I know culturally or so in society, this is the norm, but I don't really resonate with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something to, when we talk about self-awareness, just kind of being aware of that of, oh, okay, you want to open my door, right? For me, I'm going to open the door. It's not on purpose. I'm not saying like, well, I don't need you to open my door. I'm used to opening doors. So I
Yeah.
forget in a moment of like, oh, okay. And then I have my friends, they'll check me like, you better not touch that door. And I'm like, you right? You right, my bad. If you want to hit, the door had to get open. You know what I mean? So I think that's something important to remember as well, especially women in their 30s, or 30s and beyond. Some small nuances we forget because my bad, and it may not be personal.
I have a question though.
For sure.
Are you afraid to kind of give up those norms because you're so used to a lifestyle that you've been living for a while?
Am
Like
I
it's
afraid
anxiety to release. Yeah.
to give up the norm?
I'd say give up, but just kind of release, some of the things.
I'm comfortable establishing a new norm with a partner. That's
Okay.
not a problem. I've had to experience that, but it's not, when that partner's gone or that relationship is ended, it's not now I gotta wait for somebody to take out the trash. No, I'm gonna take out the trash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
things still got to get done. But yeah, I'm definitely comfortable with establishing a new norm. But I also think grace, as Jason mentioned, needs to be given in that it's a transition period. It's a lot that you have to relearn because you were in your singleness handling business.